Good morning. It is Saturday and I have a hankering for fried pies. Now, I've been thinking about these for a little while, and yesterday I found a recipe for a chocolate fried pie. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do regular fried pies with apple butter first, and then I'm going to do the chocolate. So this will be a little bit of a long video. Now, growing up, my granny always made fried pies, and sometimes she made them with her own crust, pie crust kind of thing, or she used canned biscuits. Now, most of my life I've used canned biscuits. I've tried very few times with my own crust, but today we're going to do a homemade crust. So in this bowl I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. This is a ½ teaspoon measure. Remember, we've talked about this. I cannot find my 1 teaspoon. I've got that on my list to get. And then I need 1 stick or a ½ cup of butter. You can use shortening. I wouldn't use oil. Oil is going to make it too thin. Okay, so we're going to cut this in. I'm using a fork and I'm just mashing to get this all incorporated into this dough. This is much like when you're making biscuits. You're going to cut your fat into your dough in little bitty tiny pieces. That makes the dough, in this case, it'll make it buttery. If you use shortening, it probably will make a more crisp dough. But I don't have any shortening, so I'm going to use butter today. Granny probably, for most of her fried pie days, she used dried apples many times. But I know growing up, I've seen her use apple butter. And I just always use apple butter. It's just easy for me. Granny dried her own apples. I've tried, and I make such a mess with it. It's just a mess. I don't know. I think I try to rush the process. She did not have a dehydrator. She dried them in her oven, maybe, or maybe even sometimes just out in the sun. I don't know. But she dried her own apples. Okay, that butter is all incorporated in that flour. And now we need some milk. And this recipe just calls for milk, just milk. So we're going to use what I have, and I have a fat-free milk. And we need a ½ cup. And this, with just any other dough recipe, you're going to use a ½ cup. But then if the dough does not behave like you want it to, if it doesn't come together like it needs to, you can use a little bit more, adding like a tablespoon at a time. So I'm going to pour that whole ½ cup in. Now what this needs to do, it needs to form a ball. It does not need to be dry and crumbly, but it also does not need to be too wet. So this is, I think this is good. It really might need a little bit more. So I'm going to add 1 tablespoon. I have been in such a cooking mood lately. I did 3 videos yesterday. I did chicken salad. I did a banana bread. And what else did I do? Oh, campfire chicken. Okay, so you see that just kind of came together in a ball. So that's what that did. So now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some flour on my counter, because we're going to need a workspace here to roll this out. And so what we're going to do is we're going to divide this big ball into 10 small balls of dough. I need to figure out how to do this in a way that is a more even number. 10 is a hard one to divide. So I can divide that in half. But then I've got to get each of these 2 sections into 5 each, equally. That's crazy. Okay, so honestly, you're just going to have to mark it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're going to have to mark it and go with it. So there's 1, 2, that's a little bit small. 3, 4, 5. Not too bad. Okay, so then we can kind of judge these. So we've got 5 more out of this one, and that makes 10 balls of dough. So this is going to make 10 fried pies. I'm going to do 10 apple and 10 chocolate. Let me wash my hands. Okay, so I have about 1/4 of an inch of cooking oil in the skillet. I'm using my large iron skillet because it has a good edge on it. I don't have I have another skillet. I have a Paula Deen skillet, but it doesn't have the cooking space that I like. Okay? So now from here, you can roll these out like with a dough roller, but what I find is easier, and it is easier to get them in a circle, is just to use my hands. I have more control over my hands. You need this to be in about a 6-inch circle. That's going to be a guessing game unless you just are a real mathematician and can spot those measurements without having to measure it, okay? So you need some water and you need a fork. So I'm going to go ahead and get some of these ready, and then when that oil gets ready, they're ready to go in. So what you do then is you put, and use your own, whatever your own apple butter is, you put 2 tablespoons in the middle. Then you're going to use your fingers and you're going to wet the edges of the dough all the way around. This will create a glue. This helps it stay together. So then we're going to fold this over. Try to keep your apple butter in the middle. Woo. Get some flour on the tongs. No, your fork tines. Is that what they're called? Whatever. The teeth of your fork. And you're going to pinch that. Like you're going to just pinch all the way around it. And then this fried pie is ready to go in. I'm going to do another one because I'd like to have about 4 or 5 ready when the grease gets ready, when the oil gets hot. I'd like to have about 4 or 5 ready to go in. Now Granny always, not always, but a lot of times Granny and my mama did too, and I've done this for years, we used canned biscuits for fried pies. They were ready-made portions. We used the cheapest canned biscuits we could find. You know, sometimes they come in like cans of, like 6 cans wrapped in a bundle, and they're tiny. They're like 2 bites per biscuit. But those made the best, because I think they are a basic dough, but they made the best fried pies. And we always fried them in butter in a skillet, and you had to do a lot of flipping and turning and twisting to get all the edges of your fried pie browned. And that one just came, it just busted, just came right out. Now that's gonna be a problem in my skillet. We're gonna try to go with it. Okay, maybe I need some more flour. That grease is gonna get hot. You need to let that get pretty hot on high, and then we're gonna turn it down to a medium before we put our fried pies in there. So what I may do is I may do 5 apple to start with, and then turn around and do 5 chocolate, just so I don't need to mix a new batch of dough. I don't know what it is with me these days. I don't know if it's because it's summer and I'm off from work. I don't know if it's because it really, truly right now feels like a traditional spring, and we've really not had that in several years. It has went from wintertime to 100 degrees like nothing. This dough is really soft. So I'm having to really, really, really be careful because it's wanting to. Okay, that's pretty hot, so I'm going to turn that down to medium. Let me get a spatula and see if that'll help. Anytime you're using a utensil and you're dealing with dough, you want to make sure you flour that before you try using it with your item. Okay, so I'm going to move this over here. Trying to get enough done to get at least 4 in that skillet, and 4 can fry at one time. I think honestly I could probably do all 5 at one time. Okay, we'll get it good and hot. I love fried pies. They just, to me, they just have such a feel of home and country and simple. They really, really remind me of, or make me think of, you know, back in the day when cake mixes, brownie mixes, things like that were not readily available, and you just really had to use whatever you had. And so lots of people grew apples, had apples, made apple butter, dried apples. Of course, they rendered their own fat, their own lard, things like that. So fried pies kind of lend to that, is that you're just using what you have on hand. Okay, so I'm going to use this spatula, and I'm going to lower this carefully into that oil. Now this one's seeping a little bit of the apple butter, but I'm going to go with it. We'll see how this goes. They're going to fry on that side just for a minute, and then we're going to attempt to flip them over. This one's, yeah, 4 is all I'm going to get in there. Okay, so I'm going to wash my hands. I'm going to get a different spatula that I can flip these with and take them out of the oil. You need some paper towels because you want these to drain so that grease kind of drains. I'll get a platter. Be right back. Okay, so lots, and I tend to overshoot. I tend to overshoot the paper towels just because I want it to be enough to soak it all up. Okay. They're starting to brown just a little bit on the bottom side. And so far, so good with the seepage. I'm going to go ahead and do the other apple one. And then I will mix up our filling so we can do a chocolate. That might be, chocolate fried pies might be the death of me. They may finish me. We'll see. Okay. Granny didn't typically, and I don't remember us doing it either. We didn't sprinkle ours with confectioner's sugar. When they came out, they were just a fried pie. They were just like they were. What I find is when you do something like this and you sprinkle it, it's great in that moment, but after it sits a while, you can't even tell it was sprinkled. So it's kind of useless. So we just didn't. I don't remember sprinkling fried pies when I was growing up. Okay. They seem to be cooking slow to me, so turning the heat up just a tiny bit, making sure you want to make sure you've got enough oil in the skillet that these don't just sit on the bottom of the skillet. You don't want them sitting on the bottom because that's direct heat and they'll burn in spots. So, okay, while that's going, I'm gonna mix up the paste for the chocolate. So for this one, I need 1 stick of melted butter. I need 6 tablespoons of cocoa. Now, we've talked about my cocoa before. I really prefer Hershey's cocoa. Couldn't get it, so we're going with it. So it takes 6 tablespoons. 5, 6. I'm the world's worst to get to counting and forget. I think that was 6. 6 tablespoons of cocoa, and then we need 2 cups. Let's see. We need 2 cups of sugar. So my 1 cup measure is covered in flour, so I'm going to use a 1/2 cup, and I'll just do 4. Now this is supposed to make 10 pies, but I'm going to do 5 to start with, and then I'll, after I get the video done, I'll make some more dough and go for another batch. But I want you to see how this works. So I've turned that heat up just a little bit. These are not cooking nearly as fast as I feel like they should. I don't want them to just sit and soak in that grease, and that's what will happen if your grease is not hot enough. Okay, turn those up. We'll stir this up. This makes a paste, and it's kind of a gritty paste. You know, it's just not. It's not a liquid. It's not a pudding. It's just a paste. It's kind of grainy and powdery. You can see. But this is the filling for the chocolate pies. I'm a little excited about this. Okay, chocolate pie is one of my favorite things on earth is chocolate pie. I need to do a traditional chocolate pie soon. Need to do a video for that. Okay, these are perking up just a little bit. They're starting to fry up a little bit faster. So that'll be good. We'll get them out. You can see. Can you see these? They're beautiful. They're really pretty. I want them golden brown, like a fried pie. You know how that goes. Fried pies. Okay. A little bit more flour here. I tend to be sticking to the board, to the counter. Okay. So I'm going to get my chocolate ones ready. There we go. And then it says to use 2 tablespoons of this mixture as well. I want to use this spoon, so let me rinse this off. It's just much easier to get the ingredients off of it. So there we go. We're going to put 2 tablespoons of this mixture right in the middle of your dough. Then we're going to wet the edges, just like we did with the apple. We'll wet all the way around. We fold this over. And then we're going to crimp it. Dip your fork into the flour to make sure, it's kind of like a biscuit cutter. You need to make sure that fork is covered with powder, covered with your flour, so it doesn't stick to your dough, okay? Okay, so there's that one. Ooh, these are really turning brown now since I turned that heat up. Perfect. These are looking really good. Okay. Oh my goodness gracious. Good thing I've got some coffee. I'm going to have one of these babies here very shortly. Alright, I'm going to let those cook just another minute on that side. And then I've got one more apple I'm going to go ahead and put in while I work on some of the chocolate. Okay. I'll have to take these to my mom's tomorrow, Mom and Dad's. We go there on Sundays after church, most every Sunday. And I'll take these with me, and that will be, somebody else can eat them. Because there's just too much. I've got too much here. I've still got that bread I made yesterday. That might be too much in that one. Okay. Let me get these fried pies out, because they are starting to brown up. We're going to lay those on the towel. Oh my goodness. Happy, happy, happy. This makes me so happy. My oil is starting to smoke a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and put this last apple in. Now that's going to fry up really quick. I'm going to go ahead and put my first chocolate one in. That'll help lower the temperature of the oil. If it's got something to cook, it'll lower the temperature just a little bit. That'll help it. Okay. Let's get this one done so we can get it in there. Having trouble getting my dough to fold over that amount of fillings. So we really may have to lessen the amount of filling in these chocolate ones. Yeah, I'm not sure this one's going to work. We're going to try it, though. I hate wasting dough. There's just nothing worse to me than wasting a good dough. Okay, yeah, see how fast those browned up? We're going to flip that one. We're going to flip the chocolate one. I'm going to go ahead and put in the other chocolate one. Now, if you do it in this process, you're really just going to have to pay attention to who went in the grease bath first. Because they'll have to be washed and they'll have to come out first. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, this one's bigger, so maybe that's what it was. My dough might have just been too small. Okay, so this apple is ready. I'm going to take him out. And honestly, Mr. Chocolate, I'm going to flip him back over to brown that side just a little bit more. This first one is red. Nope, he wasn't brown enough, but he's turned over anyway. Okay. Get some paste. Put it on here. I'm so anxious to see what this chocolate does when you cut into it. I really hope it doesn't, I hope it's not still crumbly. You know, it doesn't need to still be crumbly when you bite into it. It needs to be like a creamy, almost like a custard, I would think. We're working it. I'm working it right here in front of you, trying to figure it out. There we go. Yeah, I think that was my problem. That dough was too small. Okay, let me get the first chocolate one out here. I'm going to move these over just because they've been soaking for a minute. Just flip him back over. Yeah, that one needs to brown just a little bit more on that side. I watched a video of a lady doing fried pies, and I was shocked that she would do this part, and then she would cut around the dough to trim it up and make it all pretty. Well, I get that, but that's also just wasting some good dough. We're not about wasting some dough. Okay, let's take out this chocolate one. Try to keep my chocolate in the same area just because you don't want it to be. See if we can get these last two done. And then I'm going to cut into them and show you how these beautiful things look. Okay, there's one. If you use canned biscuits, you're going to do them the same way. You're going to put flour on your counter. You're going to put your filling in the middle. And then you're going to put water around the edge, fold it over, and crimp it with your fork. Same process. Same identical process if you're using canned biscuits. Okay. And you could, I didn't think about it, but you could probably use a pastry brush or something to brush this water around. This is just what we've always done. Just use our fingertips. You don't want it, I think you can control the water more. You don't want too much because it will really soften your dough too much. Let's turn this chocolate one over. Right, I'm going to splatter it everywhere. Oh, what happened there? Oh, I thought it tore, but it didn't. Okay. And look at there. That dough is just tearing. It's just too thin. But you know what? Dough expands when it's cooking, so I'm going to lay that in there and just see how that works. Don't want to make a mess, but so far, so good. So far, so good. I could probably pinch it. Yeah, pinch it up a little bit. That works. There we go. There we go. We got a nice little dough repair going on here. Yep, that works. We'll get this one folded over. You're just mashing. I mean, you're just kind of pinching your dough together where you've glued it with that flour, and it will adhere to each side. So it's kind of like a sealer. It just seals off that dough. Okay, here we go. Last two chocolate in the pan. We have made 5 apple fried pies and 5 chocolate fried pies. We'll flip him back over just a little bit. Let me wash my hands. This was an adventurous recipe to try to do while making a video. So far, so good. I'm going to show you. Now, see, these are, I mean, they're not, these are rustic. I mean, you just don't get, you see, that's where the filling kind of came out of it a little bit, but I'm going to see, look here. Okay, so I broke this in half. This is the apple fried pie. Can you see it? Look at that flaky crust. It just does not get better than that. Now, let me see what this, let me get this one out. I think it's probably ready. Hold on just a second. I'm going to show you the chocolate. Get those turned over. Sometimes you wind up turning them a couple of times. I'm just not, I've not done these enough to know just exactly how long it's going to take, but it just takes a few minutes. So let's see together what the, ooh, that's hot. Hang on, I'm going to get a plate. We'll see together what that chocolate did when it fried up. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to cut right in the middle of this. Oh my Lord. Look. Look. There is this lovely chocolate pudding in that fried pie. Have mercy. Lord of mercy. Okay, there we go. I hope you'll make some fried pies. When you're feeling adventurous, turn on some bluegrass music. I've got mine playing. It's low so you can hear me. And just get ready to make a mess in your kitchen, but make some fried pies. Somebody will love them. Thanks. Have a good weekend.